If I remember also, like if we go back to the silver era for a second, if we call it that, like with Steve Reeves and whatnot, and I'm curious what you think, because there's always this kind of debate, but if we go back as far as the 50s, do you think that those physiques now, with the common knowledge that were the, I guess, the improvement in how we approach bodybuilding and building our physiques, hypertrophy, strength training, that a physique like that can be built naturally? A Steve, whether he was or not is besides the point, because we never know, right? But
Yeah.
now, do you think that that could be a physique that could be attained naturally? Be curious to hear your
Uh,
thoughts, someone with your experience.
like Steve Reeves.
Like a Steve Reeves kind of era, gold there,
Yeah.
silver era. Yes.
Absolutely. I think because he was sort of like the pinnacle of that era. And looking at his physique, he doesn't look like obviously ballooned out, or like he's obviously very well developed. And so it's impossible to tell, like, oh, did he use or did he not use kind of thing. But I think he's not like excessively overdeveloped to the point where he conclusively did. I think it's very attainable to achieve a physique like that naturally if you've got the genetics and the work ethic and the knowledge of how to do it. I think it would take quite a long time to build a physique like that. I think the other thing is also looking at, like, sometimes when people have a very aesthetic physique, it can be related to like the shape of their muscles as well. So sometimes you can have like these really round looking muscle bellies that have very long insertion points and short tendons. So it can give you this kind of like cartoonish sort of look, just sort of genetically. And then when you fill out that frame, you can sort of, oh, wow, like it just looks crazy. And I think people confuse that with, oh, someone with good looking muscle bellies must be on the gear kind of thing.
Mm.
And then, like in my experience, because I've been training now, I started really young. I started doing weights when I was 14 and I'm 37 now. So I've been doing weights training for 23 years. I've been competing for 16 years. I've seen like, yeah, a lot of natural guys through my coaching, through my competing, and then a lot of untested athletes as well. And looking at that, I think, yeah, those silver era physiques definitely attainable naturally. They don't quite look the same as, the guys today. When you see like, the top six at the recent IFBB Mr. Olympia, and it's just like the level of muscle fullness, conditioning, and just kind of also, I guess, the dryness that
Mm.
they get and how thin their skin is and stuff like that. You kind of look at that and you see that, like, okay, there's clearly like something else going on there. But
Right.
like I think in that sort of silver era, like Steve Reeves physique, yeah, it didn't look like unrealistic or anything. It just looked like, wow, this is like still like very healthy looking physique that's just very, very well developed. Yeah.
Right. It would take a very long time to see or to have a physique of that nature, very developed. And I think a lot of the times, the people who think that it's unattainable either aren't giving themselves that time, or perhaps, I don't like to say this, but maybe don't have the genetic predisposition to build that kind of physique. And it's there, it exists. And yeah, you work with what you have, right? But I never like to fall back on that, especially if you haven't been doing things correctly for say 10 plus years. But do you think that's a time frame that you would say, okay, because I didn't notice my physique really, like when I look in the mirror and I'm like, I'm pretty happy with the results I've gotten. It's about the 10-year mark, to be honest. Right. So, and I don't know if
Yeah.
is that the same? Is that the same for you? What's the time frame that you would give somebody to say, look, you have to be patient. Here's the time frame.
Yeah. I think you definitely won't max out your physique in 10 years, I don't think. I guess when I started, I started really early, and like when I was 14. Given like the first probably, I would say 4 years of my training, it wasn't like the most practical. It was
Mm.
like full body workouts that I sort of learned from my PE teacher and stuff, mostly just focused on technique and stuff. So squats, bench, deadlift. No, actually, we didn't even learn the deadlift. I didn't start deadlifting until a little bit later. So we did, yeah, squat, bench press. I think, yeah, we did military press, a few other basic movements. And I did that lots and lots and lots of pull-ups and those sorts of things as well. And then it wasn't until I was probably around maybe 18 or so that when I was studying at university and studied like strength and conditioning properly and understanding the science behind how muscle grows and sort of different types of programming and implementing, working with like actual lecturers and strength and conditioning and stuff like that, it was like, oh wow, like when you program things properly, you can get really great results. And then even then, like I did my first competition when I was like around 21. So I'd already been training for 7 years before I did my first competition. And I feel like I kept growing very slowly and building my physique for like many more years after that. So even at the 10-year mark, I was still making progress quite slow. I feel like, yeah, by the time I got to sort of maybe 15 or so years, it started like slowing down to almost nothing. But I mean, even after 10 years, I feel like for most people, there's still some left in the tank. And I feel like my experience was probably even more fortunate than what most people would, because I'm working with like, elite level strength and conditioning coaches who are like, teaching students at university and stuff like that. So it's just like, it's not like I'm doing random bad workouts and stuff like that. It's just like I'm doing all this stuff properly. And even then I'm still sort of, making progress later on, but it's a very, very long journey for a natural athlete. And that can be one of the frustrating things. But I feel like it's like almost anything in life. There's always like, if you want to get short-term results, you pay for it later, sort of thing.
Right.
And I feel like that's the same with everything. It's just like, oh, I want this. I'm going to take a shortcut. If you're looking to build something or make a piece of art or something like that, it's just like, I could slap it together as quick as I can, just get it done and move on, kind of thing. Well, it might have faulty foundations. You might not do a proper job of it, that sort of thing. So it's just like you get it done and it's much quicker than everybody else's. But someone who, takes the time to do a little bit slower, a little bit more properly, they'll get like a lot more life out of it, sort of thing. And it's the same with your body, kind of thing. If you want it really fast, pump yourself full of drugs, that sort of thing.
Right.
It
Right.
will happen, and you'll build your physique a lot faster. But for a lot of people, there'll be, obviously consequences, and potentially you might not see those consequences for, maybe a decade down the track, kind of thing. Whereas
Right.
I guess for people who do it naturally, they don't have something that looks as amazing or as freakish, but you don't crash your natural test levels, so you sort of stay healthier for longer, and all sorts of other health benefits. So it's really just kind of a trade-off. And I think for people who haven't been involved in it that long, if you're kind of young and impressionable, it can be very tempting to just like, oh man, I don't want to the slow and steady. No one wants the slow and steady. It's not very appealing in almost
Right.
anything. It's kind of just like, do you want impressive, grandiose achievements in a very short period of time, or do you want to just like chip away, kind of slowly grind and get not much back in return? It's not very appealing. And I guess even in like movies or media and stuff like that, that's not what's promoted either. It used to be like magazines and stuff like that. Now it's like social media and stuff like that. It's still the biggest and shiniest and all that sort of stuff, the stuff that gets attention.
Yes.
So it's kind of just like that sort of the slow and steady is kind of just like, it's not something that it's not
Promoted. It's
attractive
not.
or
Yeah.
sexist, not attractive, not sexy, not promoted. It's just like, it's kind of just like this sort of, work away by yourself for a very long period of time and not get acknowledged, sort of thing. And so you see why it's so tempting to go the other way. And I feel like it's the same in like many facets of life as well. And I feel like that's just one of the things that's not necessarily an issue with just bodybuilding, but I feel like the relationship between people's attention and media in general is kind of
Yeah.
just like, it's just like something pops up on your screen. It's just like, oh, you're going to go for the guy who looks the same as he did like 4 years ago, but weighs like a couple of pounds heavier, or the guy who's made this crazy transformation and he's like, whoa, he's put on 20 pounds of muscle in like 2 years. Oh my God. And he's just freakish, sort of thing. And it's the same with like, people who, maybe make a transformation in other areas of life, whether it's just like, oh, they became a millionaire and they did it like, really quickly or whatever. It's just like, oh, that's fascinating. Or they used to be a drug addict and they gave it up, versus like, oh, here's someone who just had a healthy life and ate oatmeal in the morning and never touched drugs and stuff like that. It's not
Yeah. That's
interesting.
boring. Yeah.
Not,
Yeah.
yeah, no one cares. People want drama. People want this drastic, crazy stuff. And it's just like, where does your attention go? And it goes to those things. What I would do is for each body part, volume wise is going to change, but on average, let's say roughly 20 sets sort of per body part, but it might start just below that and build up above. So in say week 1, I might be doing somewhere between 15 and 20 sets per body part. And then, by week 8, week 10,